to Wedding Wednesday. My name is Adriana, and today's episode, you guys, I'm sharing all of the red flags that I have personally seen or felt in my own personal life when it comes to relationships. I'm uncovering everything for you and sharing real life examples of what they look like. This is completely anecdotal and completely my own thoughts. It's not researched backed, but you are free to do your own research here when it comes to red flags. Before we get into all the red flags, please hit the subscribe button, rate and review the podcast, and let me know in the comments your number one red flag that you felt in a relationship before so we can start a conversation over there. With that, let's dive into all of our red flags. Have you ever felt that gut-wrenching feeling before when you were in a relationship and you just did not know where it came from? Well, let me tell you, in my experience, when I have felt this in past relationships, it's typically my anxiety telling me something is wrong. So, red flag number one, gut feeling edition, is feeling that anxiety in regards to my partner. It's anxiety that often in the past, for me anyway, has resulted in consistent bloating, in my throat being closed up. It's almost like my body was rejecting that relationship and trying to tell me that like this was not for me. And so that red flag was really alarming, probably the number one red flag that I've ever experienced. And I hear a lot of other people experience too. They just sometimes don't know how to like put it into words or vocalize what they're actually feeling. But at the end of the day, it's their anxiety and their intuition telling them like, maybe this is not for them. So I almost feel like it's the body's way of telling you this isn't right, this doesn't feel right, and to walk away. And by the way, relationships are not just with your partner. You can feel this gut-wrenching anxiety in so many relationships, in friendships, in work relationships, in regards to your relationship with your body or your fitness or your boss. I have felt this gut feeling in so many aspects of my life that now anytime I feel that feeling, which I hope never to feel again, but I'm sure it happens. Anytime I feel that feeling, I know it's my intuition telling me something's got to change. It's my body telling me like this is not in alignment with me, and it's something that I sit and consider and reevaluate as to why I'm feeling that feeling. The second red flag that I feel that I've seen before is when you're not excited when you think about your future together. If you are picturing your wedding to the person that you're with and you're just not feeling excited or hopeful or home, it's a red flag, I think. I have felt this before in past relationships where I knew in my gut that like we were not endgame and ultimately ended up walking away for that reason. But it's definitely a red flag to listen to. It's not something you should ignore. Just because maybe the person might be showering you with a beautiful lifestyle doesn't mean you shouldn't be ignoring that gut feeling of you like not picturing your life with them. So really important red flag to think about. The next gut feeling related red flag is you don't wake up happy every day with the person or your self-esteem drops in this relationship. Ultimately, if the bad outweighs the good, your self-esteem is always down over up, like it's you just never feeling good about yourself and the bad outweighs the good, it's typically a red flag. You don't want to be in a position where you're feeling like 70% of your relationship 77 you don't want to be in a position where 70% of the time you feel like your relationship is in a bad place and only 30% of the time it's in a good place. It should be flipped. And if anything, it probably should feel 95% great and 5% bad. So, because every couple has that conflict, to work through. So that's just something to keep in mind. But what I've seen in other relationships and just hearing other people's experiences saying that like, oh, our relationship is good like some of the time, but not all the time. Typically, that's something that they'll use to like question whether or not they're supposed to be in that relationship, which can be a red flag. So something to think about there. If any of these red flags if you felt any of these red flags before in any of your relationship, hit the subscribe button because I'm going to be diving way more into relationship related stuff coming in the new year. So I would love for you to stick around for that. Let's dive into the emotional red flags. Okay, number one, are you ready? When one partner's feelings or opinions get disregarded. Listen, if you feel like your partner is constantly disregarding your feelings, disregarding your opinion on things, never taking your opinion into consideration, that could be a red flag. I'm not saying it has to be every time that your partner has to take your opinion into consideration, but I do think it's a really good sign if your partner really cares about how you feel and your opinion on certain things. And it's not a great sign if they're completely disregarding you. To give you an example, let's say you guys had aligned on the type of lifestyle that you want, where you both together have decided you're going to put your families first and your career second. And then one of you decides 5 years down the line that career all of a sudden takes number one, and that person didn't communicate to the other person that they were taking like a promotion or a job across the country, or a job that required them to travel all the time, which would inevitably make family number two in this equation. That's a bit of a red flag. Like, there should always be communication amongst the two of you in your couple. And if somebody all of a sudden, or even ahead of getting married, seems to never regard your opinion and your feelings on big life subjects that affect your lives together, I think it's a red flag. So something to think about there. The next red flag that I've seen is when one partner is checked out, like utterly disconnected, and they say they don't care about any decisions you make for your future together. And guess what? You will know during the wedding planning process. If your partner literally does not care about anything you're deciding in regards to the wedding, I think it's a red flag. They're either not vocalizing what they truly want, or they don't care enough. They don't care enough to say anything about anything. Like, I'm not saying they have to care about every single little tiny little detail, but like if you want, I don't know, like to get married in Italy, and you tell your partner I would like to get married in Italy, and they're like, yeah, whatever, like I don't care, like you do whatever you want, and they're constantly acting that way towards every decision, or at least a lot of the decisions, it could be a red flag. You don't want to be with somebody who's checked out of your relationship. You want to be in a relationship with someone who is checked in, literally, like so on it, so happy to be part of this relationship. And I think a lot of people ignore this red flag because it's not blatantly obvious. They're not being disrespectful towards you. They're not being rude or emotionally or physically abusive. Like, there's no like a blatant red flag when somebody's checked out. But I do think, especially women, we have female intuition, and our little gut tells us something there is a little off. I don't know why. And it could be because the person is actually checked out. So that's something to explore and not ignore if you're planning a wedding with somebody that you feel might be checked out. So something to think about there. The next red flag in regards to emotional red flags is when your partner shows no curiosity about you. Guys, if your partner never asks, like, how's your day? Or what did you do today? Or how did that meeting go with your boss that you were nervous about? Or how did that coffee go with that friend that you've been meaning to see for a while? If they're never asking you questions about you, they're not curious about you, it's a red flag. Like, that's kind of paired with being checked out. They should be curious about you. And if you're constantly finding yourself asking your partner questions about them, and you feel like they never ask questions about you back, it's something to think about. I'm not saying that all these red flags automatically mean you should break up with people. I do, however, think that if any of these red flags do appear, and at least consistently over and over, that you should discuss them with your partner and get to the root cause of why these red flags might be popping up. Something to think about. Let's dive into the red flags in regards to respect. This is a big one. You know how many married couples, like old married couples that have been married like 35 years, are so disrespectful to one another? It gives me the ick when I see at a dinner party, even a couple that's been together not as much time, saying a comment about their significant other that is so disrespectful. It's just kind of icky. And look, it happens to the best of us. And if it happens like once every like 7 years, it can happen to anybody. That's totally fair. Sometimes people have animosity in their couple and like something like that comes out, it's not okay. But if it happens like continuously where they're always disrespecting you in front of other people, huge, huge, huge red flag. So that's the first red flag here in regards to respect, is when someone disrespects their partner by talking badly about them in front of other people. We've all seen it. We've all been privy to it. It's just not pleasant to witness, and it's surely not pleasant to receive. So if you feel like you are disrespectful towards your partner, that's something to think about. Sometimes I have seen people that have been disrespectful to their past partners bring that into new relationships and continue to be disrespectful to that new partner because they think it's just the norm, when in reality it's a bad habit that their past partner was letting them get away with. And in doing all this, I've noticed over time that like in that new relationship, actually the new partner probably said something because that disrespect eventually ended. So it goes to show that like you can communicate through some of these things. You know, you could definitely solve some of these issues. But if you're that person being disrespectful to your partner, stop it. And if your partner is disrespectful to you in front of other people, you should ask them to stop it too. The next red flag is when you don't feel like your partner is proud to be with you or show you off. Yeah, this is not fun when you feel like your partner is embarrassed of you or doesn't want to show you off, or, you know, they make comments that make you feel bad about yourself. Back to the self-esteem thing. Huge red flags, huge ick. You should feel like your partner is your home, your safe space, your saving grace. You should not feel like your partner is a stranger or somebody that is part of the haters or that just is disrespectful towards you. So yeah, you should feel like your partner is proud of you and wants to show you off. I mean, one of my favorite things that Antoine does that embarrasses me, but like in a good way, is he hypes me up to other people all the time. Like I overhear him talking about me like I am the best person on the planet. Like I do the coolest things ever. And although sometimes I feel like I don't, like I feel bad about myself, like I'm having a low self-esteem moment, I overhear him talk about how great I am. It makes me feel so good. And I wouldn't be with anybody who would make me feel any less than that, you know? So if you ever feel that way in your relationship, it's something to say and it's something to talk about. I want to dive into unequal red flags, okay? Are you ready? So, number one, unequal related red flags would be when your partner always puts their own feelings ahead of yours. And I'm talking about like all the time. Like they're never willing to be lenient in any capacity for you. And this is easier said than done. This is something I struggle with, to be completely honest. There are some things that I don't like to do that Antoine likes to do and he wants me to do with him. And so I, for lack of a better word, take an L and I do it with him because it makes him happy. But I struggle and sometimes I complain, and it's really unpleasant. It's something I'm working on doing less of. But it it's something I'm conscious of. So that's what's important here, is that first of all, I don't do this all the time, obviously. But if the person you're with is constantly putting their own feelings ahead of yours, it can be a red flag. So it goes beyond just like doing an activity that the other person wants to do, that you don't want to do. It's also in regards to taking like a big job, for example, that would require your entire lifestyle to change without consulting you first. You know, when you're making decisions without your partner, again, that affect the two of you, that means they're putting their feelings ahead of yours here instead of discussing about your feelings together in regards to the situation. So that could be a red flag. Another unequal red flag is when your partner doesn't make an effort to show you love in your love language. And this is easier said than done. And to be completely honest with you, this is something that Antoine and I are lucky enough not to have to experience because we have this same top two love languages. So that's super convenient for us. It's just not a point of tension, at least not for now. And I would imagine would be difficult for either one of us if our love languages were different. Okay. But with all that said, if your partner's love language is acts of service, for example, you should show them that love language. You should show them love in that love language. If your love language is quality time, but your partner's is active service, your partner should be making some time for you to show you love in your love language. I think it's a red flag when the other person A doesn't understand the whole idea of love languages and B doesn't want to make an effort here, because it kind of makes them look like they only care about their own feelings of what they value, when in reality, like, you're in a relationship to please the other person too, not just please yourself. That's the whole point of partnership, is to be there for each other in the ways that they need. So that could be a red flag if at least your partner's not willing to discuss this. Have you experienced a love language red flag or any other red flags that we've mentioned up until now? Would love to hear about it in the comments below if you have. Okay, diving into psychological red flags. Here we go. So, number one red flag psychological would be when your partner makes you doubt your own reality. When your partner makes you think you're delusional, it's because they're delusional. Okay, that is a red flag. You should not feel like you're crazy in your relationship, and if you do, it should not be often. It should be very, very seldomly. Why? Well, you want somebody who's going to listen to you and understand where you're coming from. You don't want somebody to make you feel like you live in a different reality. That's very toxic trait in my experience and can affect your decisions together for the rest of your lives. So that could be a big red flag. Again, all of these red flags that I've mentioned up until this point and in the rest of this episode are purely based off anecdotal events, my own personal experiences, and experiences that I've witnessed. But I do urge you to go and do some research on your own in regards to any of these red flags. The next red flag that's psychological is when affection feels conditional. This is a huge ick. Like, I will only love you if you bring me my morning coffee every morning, make me dinner every night, clean all the household, wash my car, do all my laundry. That's conditional. Nobody wants to be in a relationship where they feel like love is conditional. And it can be a red flag if you're constantly looking for the approval of your significant other, because if you don't do all the things that they deem worthy of you to get their love, then it's just a big red flag. Like, you should not feel like you need to do all of these things in order for them to love you. You should feel like they love you for you, and the things that, encompass a relationship outside of just each other's love is kind of a different category of things to discuss. So what do I mean by that? Like, you should feel like your partner loves you every day. You should feel like you love your partner every day. Aside from all the crap that comes along with living together and being in a relationship, right? What does that crap kind of look like? Who's gonna clean the dishes? Who's gonna make the bed? Who's gonna pay that bill? Okay, that's the other chats I call life admin stuff that you guys should take out of the love equation here. If you should feel, if you took all that out, you guys love each other, then I would consider that more unconditional than conditional. However, if you're adding that into your love dynamic, then it becomes automatically more conditional. I will only love you if you do the dishes all the time. Like, it's a stupid example, but like, you get what I'm trying to say, is that your love should not be conditional. It should be unconditional. And it could be a red flag if you feel like you're constantly seeking your partner's love and approval. Another psychological red flag that I've noticed amongst people is when your partner refuses to take responsibility for anything. This is a huge red flag, and I'm going to exclude the older generations here, because the idea of taking responsibility or accountability for anything in those generations was a lot harder, and it's not their fault. It's just how they grew up. I think that our generation, millennials and younger, are able to kind of a little bit more recognize when they need to take responsibility and accountability for things. And so I find that there's no excuse for our generation for not being able to take responsibility for anything. So if you're in a partnership where your partner doesn't take responsibility when they do something wrong, or you don't take responsibility when you do something wrong, it can be a red flag. And you end up just playing the finger pointing game. Like, you do this, well, you do that, well, you do that, well, you do that. Like, oh my God, how about everybody just take responsibility for what they do? You say sorry and you come together to put together an action plan to solve the issue at hand here, right? That's more of a healthier dynamic, in my opinion, than you guys playing the blame game. You know, it doesn't solve any issues playing the blame game. And if you're constantly playing the blame game, it's a red flag, in my opinion. Let's dive into some big picture red flags, like lifestyle red flags. So the first one, this one's controversial, but if you've been together like 10 plus years and you've expressed many times that you want to get married, but the other person just never proposes, I think that this can be a red flag about this person not being your long-term partner. And I say this with caution. I think it's a red flag, but other people might not think it's a red flag. And it's also different if you've both agreed that you don't want to get married, but that you're each other's person and you want to do life together, versus two people being in a relationship that always pictured themselves getting married and 10 years going by and not one or the other has proposed to the other. That's different. That's like a lifestyle shift that doesn't seem to align. And I have seen and heard of people staying in relationships for 7, 8, 10 years, 15 years, always saying, we'll get married, I'll propose soon, we'll get married, and they never do. And if you're somebody who wants to get married and that person, hasn't expressed that they want to get married to you and has actually shown the action to pair with those words, I think it can be a red flag about them not particularly seeing you as their long-term partner. So that could be a red flag to consider. But again, it's not necessarily a red flag for everybody. Like I said, like some people, they don't want to get married and they're perfectly fine with that. And so in that dynamic, I don't think that's a red flag because they both agree they don't want to get married. But something to think about there. Comment below if you know a couple has been together a really long time. They're waiting to get married. Somebody in the couple is waiting to get married and the other person just hasn't proposed yet and you think it's a red flag, or if you think it's not a red flag and everybody has their timeline and yeah, their process. The next red flag when it comes to the big picture stuff is when your core values and your future visions don't align. Like, it's not a dangerous red flag. Obviously, none of these are quote unquote dangerous red flags. A dangerous red flag, in my opinion, again, would be, physical or emotional abuse. None of these are really considered dangerous red flags here, in my opinion. However, the idea of your core values and your future not aligning is a red flag in the sense that when you're choosing your life partner, you ideally want to picture your lives in the same way. And if you get married and then you don't picture your lives in the same way, like 5 years down the line, then it just creates tension later down the line that could have been avoided, beforehand. So you want to talk to your partner. A lot of people don't talk to their partners. Guys, communication is so important. Over communicate. What does that even mean? It means like you talked about a subject and you keep talking about it and you keep talking about it and you keep talking about it until it feels like it's really put to bed for the two of you. Don't brush it under the rug. Talk it out. You're going to feel better for it. You really will. And sometimes it's easier said than done. I know. Trust me, I know. But it always makes me feel better personally in my relationship when I over communicate than under communicate. Because when I under communicate, then it comes out in some weird way and then I'm lashing out at him over something ridiculous. And in the end, it could have just been solved by just over communicating and just having a nice, calm, tense discussion, but still calm, remaining communicative. So something to think there is like to communicate with each other and align on your core values, align on your futures together. Because if you don't, it's really hard to recover from that. To give you like an overview example, I've heard of so many people breaking up because one person wanted kids, the other one didn't. Or a couple I knew a few years ago, they broke up because one of them wanted to travel the world and the other wanted to settle down. That's at the core of it, a difference in values and lifestyles. And you cannot build a long-term partnership with somebody whose lifestyles and values are not the same as yours. The last red flag that I'm actually going to throw in here that I think is very common in relationships. Maybe I'll call it a beige flag because it's definitely solvable, is what I just mentioned in kind of tangent here with the core values and future vision, is communicating. If one person is able to communicate like to their partner and the partner's not able to communicate back, they're just like kind of dead silent. They don't want to express any communication, or they don't want to express that they're going to work on their communication. I think it's a red flag. Because, like, how can you speak to somebody who doesn't want to speak to you, right? Like, how are you going to solve anything? Because problems pop up all the time and they will forever. How are you guys going to solve anything if one of you wants to talk about it and the other one never does, or wants to explore how to talk about it, right? Like, it's like talking to a wall. Like, how are you going to build a partnership with somebody who you feel like is you're talking to a wall? So that's a big, big flag. Those are all of my red flags for you. I want to say one last thing before we end today's episode, and that is that this was the last Wedding Wednesday episode. We have concluded season 1 of Wedding Wednesday, and I am currently working really hard on putting together season 2 for you. Season 2 is going to be the evolution of this show. So, although this first season will always be called Wedding Wednesday, we are working on the next phase of our podcast. Let me tell you, it's going to evolve into really diving deeper into how to grow as an individual. We're going to talk through some self-development stuff, but most importantly, we're also going to talk about how to grow within your couple together without losing each other or losing yourself. I am so excited to launch season 2 of our podcast and to release the name. We are currently working with a few name ideas, but we haven't quite nailed it yet. I'm going to put some of the names of the new podcast that we're considering in the comments, and I want you to vote on which name you like best, or even suggest some names that we might be able to leverage here for season 2. Like I said, Wedding Wednesday will forever be the title of season 1 of our podcast, but our rebrand will have a new name and the show will evolve into its next phase. If there are any topics in regards to how to grow together, how to not lose your individuality within your relationship, how to balance crazy life, crazy schedules, work life, how to talk about having kids, how to manage your time, please, please, please put it in the comments for me to read. I would love to integrate a lot of these topics, or all of these topics, within our new season coming up. With that, I want to thank you so much for listening to Wedding Wednesday. I cannot wait to come back next year. In the meantime, please follow us on Instagram to catch all things rebrand at Wedding Wednesday Pod. And of course, please hit the subscribe button, because this channel is not going anywhere. It'll just have a new name. So you don't miss out on our evolution. Make sure you tune in, subscribe, rate, review, do all the things, because it really does help our podcast grow. And with that, I will see you in the next season. Bye for now.